What I'd like to do, because we're getting towards the end of this panel discussion, is switch to culture and ask these three business, financial and economic leaders on the stage, from their perspective, how much does Australia need to change its core culture and the cultural outlook of its people? This is one of the issues addressed in the White Paper, and the White Paper says, and I quote, "All Australian students will have the opportunity and be encouraged to undertake a continuous course of study in an Asian language throughout their years of schooling," unquote. Now, for Australia, that is a revolutionary change. It is a revolutionary change. How efficient is that? Is this the best way we alter our culture, given that some of our school children have great trouble even mastering and studying a European language, let alone an Asian language? So my question is a double-barrel question to each panel member. Given that we are a Western country that's now got a multicultural society, how much do we try and change our culture and Asianise our culture? And secondly, if we're trying to do it, is this the most efficient way of doing it? Let's start with Michael Chaney.
Well, I think it's a really good idea because learning a foreign language is not, the benefit is not just that you can speak a foreign language, it does teach you something about the culture of the people, especially if you get a chance to go there and experience life yourself. We happen to be living in this zone, which is the world's going to be the world's great growth zone of the next few decades. Whether or not it, as David says, has hiccups, it's going to do a lot better than other regions in the world. And to the extent that we can take our people and help them understand what's happening in those areas, I think we're going to be much better off. One of the great problems, I think, of political life in Australia today is a great sort of parochialism and a lack of understanding what's going on in the rest of the world. And so debate gets reduced to, you know, silly subjects, silly local subjects that have nothing to do with world events and what's happening elsewhere. And the reason for that, I think, is just an inadequate understanding of what is happening. And I think the more we can help people realise what's going on in these other countries and how we might benefit and where we stand in that broader context, the better off we'll be. And I think learning a language is just a sort of a start of that process, but an important seed.
I'll make 2 points. I think the plan is to give Australian students the opportunity to study Asian languages throughout their schooling. Let me just draw attention to a practical problem, which is potentially quite serious, and that is that high-performing students obviously choose the subjects they do as they approach the end of their schooling on the basis of what is going to give them the best marks. And if you're a non-native speaker, you will be competing against, and you're choosing to do Mandarin, you will be competing against some cohort of the people in Australia doing the course that are native speakers. And so there's a natural reason why high-performing students, it's hard to encourage non-native speakers to take these courses late in their schooling for the simple reason that they're at a competitive disadvantage. So I think providing encouragement is important, but there are practical difficulties in actually encouraging large numbers of students to take part in non-native speakers to build real capacity in Asian languages.
John, what's your perspective on this question?
Well, pretty pragmatic, I think would be the answer, Paul. I've got a 16-year-old son who's just finishing year 11 and going into year 12, and I can wholeheartedly endorse exactly what David just said in terms of the practicalities of what you need to get in you know, the ATAR marks you need to get into universities and how kids select that. Secondly, though, you know, when we came back from Japan, my son was 11, and as an 11-year-old, he could not carry on his Japanese studies in any of the 3 preferred schools that I had chosen for them. And that goes more to the point of the practical availability of teachers, right? It's fine to say we're all going to learn Asian languages. I just want to know who's going to teach them. And then finally, and perhaps, and this you may say this is too micro, but this goes to the heart of the issue in my point. My son's just finished year 11. Last Friday he did his first BCE subject, which was geography. You would think that in the age of the Asian century that geography in Australia would have a bit of relevance in the Asian context. The subjects that he spent 90% of his time doing this year for that subject were the Murray-Darling Basin. Secondly, he had to do a local study, which was the botanical gardens in Victoria. And thirdly, you know, he had to do some aspects of population studies, which as part thereof did of course include some review of the different demographies that were coming out of Asia. But therein, I think, lies the problem. It's fine to talk about cultural change, but again, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of course content, in terms of the education system, the staffing of that education system and the capability of that education system to get from where we are to where we want to be.
Yeah, Paul, if I could just add, I don't underestimate the challenge of doing it. I think it's a very good idea, but people forget in 2007, Kevin Rudd actually announced, I think it was $55 million to increase the study of Asian languages in Australian schools. I don't know what happened to that. It seems to have disappeared. Did you address that in your report, David?
That's a $55 million that I don't know anything about, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Let's hope the next one's more successful.
Well, if we consider something like Indonesian studies and Indonesian language studies, there's been a very substantial decline in that in this country over the last 15 to 20 years. It's been quite extraordinary. Look, I would love to continue, but time has got the better of us, and it's now my task to call upon Helena Douglas to come up here to, I think, move a vote of thanks to our distinguished panellists.